Welcome to Peoples and Things, where we explore human life with technology. I'm Lee Vinsel. Maintenance and repair are some topics I have thought about over the years. Did you know that? Maintenance and repair. Some good topics right there. When you go into and start to really deeply understand an academic literature on a given topic, gaps in our current understanding just rear up all over the place. And often enough, the gaps are well known, and yet no one has taken the time to do the work that would fill that gap. And I know people love to criticize this kind of gaps language, but you can see it too as a form of maintaining, repairing, and caring for an academic literature, like tuck pointing an old beloved brick wall. Here's a known gap in the maintenance and repair literature, at least to my knowledge. Something you hear a lot about in right to repair circles is that over the course of the 20th century, there was a rise and fall of local, independently owned repair stores. The causes of the decline in the number of shops are multiple. For one thing, many technologies in our lives effectively became disposable. I mean, if your toaster breaks, it is cheaper to throw it out and buy a new one than to pay someone to fix the one you have. A lot of times it will cost more to have someone even look at a broken object than it costs to buy a new one. But do we really know in detail and supported by excellent evidence about this rise and fall story? Unless I've missed something in the past few years, the answer is not a lot. We don't know a lot about it at all. For sure, Phil Scranton's forthcoming Global History of Spare Parts is going to tell us some important things about this topic, but we lack a history that goes right after this rise and decline issue. The topic is there for the having, and some of the work is even obvious, like using collections of phone books to track the numbers of repair shops in selected cities. But who is going to sit down and do that work? We shall see. When I first started getting into maintenance repair studies, another obvious and significant gap was in the relationship between maintenance and repair and design, including the issue of repairability, how objects are or aren't designed to be fixable. Now, I think we have good work on this topic in recent years, including from folks like Daniela Rosner, but I was so happy to see an entire volume dedicated to the topic come out. It's titled Design/Repair, Place, Practice, and Community, and it is edited by Abby Mellick Lopes, Alison Gill, Keulemans, Niklavs Rubenis, and this episode's guest, Eleni Kalantidou, who is an assistant professor at the Queensland College of Art and Design. In our conversation, Eleni and I talk about how this volume came to be and some of what you can expect to find in it. We also chat about another book Eleni published recently titled Introduction to Design Psychology. I hope you enjoy this gap-filling conversation. It's always such a joy to see a gap filled, which is why I say to you, hey, get excited! Eleni, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
My pleasure, Lee.
So Design Repair is a neat book. Can you tell folks what it's about and what you and your co-editors were trying to do with it?
So the idea behind the book is that repair gets a bad rap. It's usually connected to hippies, hipsters, and it's a practice that gets a nostalgic feel. Whereas actually it's a practice that's absolutely necessary given where we're heading in conditions of climate change and within conditions of exhausting natural resources. So in that sense, we felt the need to promote design and repair as the first responders in relation to what's happening with what we're all facing globally with climate change. And the idea came, so let me give you a bit of a backstory in relation to the book, if we have time
No,
for
of
that.
course, go for it. Yeah, that's what we're here for.
So during COVID, we were all isolated, as you know, and I felt very alone in my effort to promote repair as connected to design. So I reached out to some people that were doing similar stuff. Some of them then became my fellow editors for the book. And we started having conversations about design and repair and our shared passion for repair. And also our grievances, because it's been really hard to connect design and repair.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't see the connection between the two. And I've had a lot of issues trying to be published as a design academic while writing about repair for the past several years. Now it's becoming more of a norm, but when I started back in the 2014, it was extremely hard to be published, especially in design journals, because they couldn't see the connection between design and repair. So long story short, we came together, we put forward an expression of interest for a special issue for the Design and Culture Journal. And we got really interesting work in relation to design and repair. We started with a call for design-led repair, which in our eyes was design leading repair, design as a practice of maintaining, fixing, reimagining. But we got a lot of papers that were talking about repair-led design, which were grassroots movements coming together and repairing their stuff, or creating communities that meant to repair stuff or wanted to repair stuff and maintain and fix stuff. So in that sense, we kind of retrospectively changed the expression of interest, or we saw it with different eyes, because we got papers from different places around the world. Unfortunately, some of the abstracts didn't lead to actual papers, but yeah, it was interesting to see how you come up with something and then it organically evolves and brings to the surface something new. The special issue was never published, but we took the proposal to Nature Springer and Palgrave Macmillan, and they were happy to publish that as a book. So we spent some extra time creating the volume as a collection of chapters, and here you go.
Yeah, that's great. I love the backstory too, because it kind of makes it touches on so many things I wanted to ask you about anyway, and also kind of makes sense of the shape of the volume, which I was wondering about. I think I want to ask you about like both the design part and the communities cultures part. So, yeah, and on the problem on the design part, I feel like when it comes to repairability, so you know this. I mean, this is part of the point, but the role of design is so important in making things that are even repairable to begin with. And yet it's been so hard. I mean, when Andy and I, Russell and I were writing The Innovation Delusion, it was just there was very little written about that. I mean, you could go find stuff in industrial journals going way back about maintainability or whatever. But it just felt like, as you're saying, like the design world wasn't, I think you're right that in the last handful of years, things are really shifting. But it has just felt like the importance of design for this thing that's so important overall was just like kind of neglected. So I'm glad to hear that it wasn't just us, that was your experience with it too. Do you think things,
No,
yeah, go ahead.
we are struggling with that, not just as researchers, but as teachers as well,
Yeah.
because how design is delivered at universities at a tertiary level is very conventional and very traditional and it's rooted in the canon still. which is very problematic because things have shifted.
Yeah.
And the issue with design is that it's disconnected from what's actually happening before and after. So that's very much related to what you're saying about, for example, what is innovation and how we don't see innovation in keeping something alive and giving something a second life or a third life. Because as you know, with repair, you never get something that's the exact same thing. It
Yes.
gets transformed. And there's always innovation in that. There's always innovation in making something last and maintaining something or making something work for an extended period of time. So even the connotation of innovation or how we perceive innovation is very much attached to newness.
Yes.
And there are a lot of researchers right now that contest that idea. And it's great that this idea gets a reimagining.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's not even a reimagining. It's how it's supposed to be. And there's a long history of why innovation is attached to newness. And we all know about building obsolescence and how we see products as things that have to die and be replaced. So in that sense, I think we are reaching a certain point where design has to be reimagined and has to be connected to real life.
Yeah, and that actually sets up the my next question a bit, which is that then to connect it to the communities and kind of repair cultures part. If we think about something like the circular economy, I don't know what you think of that concept. The concept itself, I don't know if it'll stick around or I don't know what I think about it, but I think it's pointing in the right direction. And for listeners who might not know the term, the idea is that we would massively decrease the amount of products we're putting into the waste stream and into dumps, basically, right? But through changing the way we produce things and maintaining them and repairing them for longer and recycling better and all these things. Now, in order to get there, we're going to need to repair and maintain things in new ways. So you have to have like sets of practices and communities. So that's why I really liked the fact that you had these communities and kind of repair cultures in the book too, because it's like that is going to be how we get there on a kind of like mass scale is a real question. I don't know the answer to, but it's very clear that we need them around. So I was just glad they were in the volume. Yeah.
It's interesting you're asking that because we have touched on that in the book. We talked about how the concept of circular economy has only been attached to industrial practices.
Right.
And we all know about the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and how the work has been promoted through that. But we think that the concept should be expanded. And it should involve more social and community aspects as well, and individual aspects. But it's very important to acknowledge that it's not just about recycling. It's not just about products returning to factories.
Yeah.
It's also about how we keep things alive, how we prevent things from ending up in landfills, how we repair things because we have the means to repair and we have the skills to repair and we have the understanding to repair and we have the predisposition to repair, which for me it's really, really important. So circular economy is a concept that people feel like it's really much related to industrial designers and to industries, but it should be an everyday term for all of us within the reach of our everyday practices. And we kind of do that when we put stuff in the recycle bin or when we compost, but it should be extended to not changing our phones every year. It should be extended to, yes, we buy clothes from a thrift shop, but we should think about not buying new stuff on top of that.
Yeah.
Because being attached to products and maintaining products doesn't really mean that we won't go out and buy new stuff. So that's another concept that it hasn't been attached to the circular economy.
Yes.
How we reduce consumption, how we reduce waste, how we rethink waste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I need to connect you. There's a doctoral student here at Virginia Tech named Sarah Svensson Hoagland, I think, and I need to connect you to. She's working on kind of circular design, but focusing on kind of cultural shifts that need to happen, including that of the growing a repair culture. So I just need to connect you to. I think you'd have lots to talk about. You call
I'd love that.
in a couple of spots you call yourself a design psychologist, and I know kind of psychologists who hang out with design and connect to it, but I think it was the first time I'd heard that exact phrase. So was wondering, like, what is, how do you think of, what is a design psychologist? How do you approach things? And yeah.
Look, it's don't get surprised that it's the first time you had that, because I made it up.
Oh,
It
good.
doesn't exist. So, so it doesn't really exist, and it came out of my personal frustration as a person that has a bachelor degree in psychology and a PhD in architecture.
Okay.
So, throughout my career, and it hasn't been that long, but still, I've been struggling with the fact that these two disciplines are disconnected, exist in silos, but in reality, they overlap. Because whatever we design, it directly affects human psychologies. And with design with psychologies in mind, and also with design led by our own psychologies. And our psychology is a cultural construct in one way or another, or it's a designed outcome in one way or another, because no man is an island. So in that sense, I try, and I've been trying to put together a discursive practice that take psychology and design out of their silos and their disciplinary traditions. And I've written a book about that. It's going to be out by the end of this year.
Okay,
And
cool.
it's published by Routledge, and it's called Introduction to Design Psychology. And the idea behind this book is to show how both disciplines have failed to deliver what they were supposed to deliver, and then how we could bring them together in order to adapt and adopt new practices that are more in line with real life, lived experience, and place-based approaches. So again, the book is not about demonizing design and psychology, but it's about how, for me, they kind of lost their way, and they got attached to practices that provide solutions that are made out of the problems that they try to solve. So in that sense, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, because I'm very much in my head when it comes to design psychology, but I hope I gave you an idea.
Yeah. Do you touch on repair in the book at all, or?
Yes, repair is a huge part of the book, because I approach repair as a holistic practice and as an ontological practice. So in a sense, repair is not just about things. It's about repairing the self through cognitive reskilling. It's about repairing communities by repairing the environments we live in and our social conditions and how we interact with each other. And then it's about preserving our resources based on our lived experience and our place-based experience. So in that sense, repair is omnipresent.
Yes. Well, and I think that'll come out a bit for the listeners too, and when we talk about your essay in the edited volume, where I think you draw this out as well. That's great. And so I wanted to ask you kind of like how you ended up looking at repair. I was looking at like the history of your publications on your faculty page, and there's some early stuff on Greece, and then you resiliency and notions of like unsettlement come in early. And then, but like as you're saying, 2014, 2015, uh, you're on to repair. And that was pretty early. I mean, I know repair studies pretty well, for a variety of reasons. And that was actually pretty early in the conversation. I mean, there was, we could talk about the whole literature. There was some stuff around, but not much. You were pretty, you were leading leading very early on the topic. So I just wondered, like, how did it kind of come into your life and your kind of professional, how did you end up on the topic?
That's why when I started the discussion about design psychology, I mentioned that it goes way back and it's rooted in my frustration as a biased, Eurocentric white woman trying to figure out why we're in that mess to begin with.
Got it.
The other thing that I'm still facing is how we approach problems epistemologically, in the sense that everything is grounded in a natural scientific way of doing things, numbers, statistics, even when it comes to people. So in that sense, I wanted to confront first the problems that we're facing, like unsettlement, how colonialism, how a lot of these issues with cities, for example, came with modernity. So in that sense, I wanted to confront the fact that we have constructed a situation for ourselves that is very, very problematic. And then as a response, I looked into repair, again, from an ontological and holistic point of view, in order to see how we could address these issues, not demonizing them, but trying to see if we have existing practices that could help us adapt or help us reassess how we do things.
That's very nice.
So,
Yeah.
and the other thing I tried to do, because again, when we're having these conversations as academics, it doesn't mean that necessarily this will translate into action,
Right.
or this will translate into something that people outside our academic environments will understand. So really early on, I tried to get hands-on and do projects that actually try to materialize this way of thinking. And in the introduction of my own book, Introduction to Design Psychology, I talk about how if you go to my publication list, some things might feel disjoint, but in reality, it's what I've been trying to do is to experiment with ideas in order to get a sense of what I'm doing or what I want to do,
Yeah.
or how I can respond to the situation called adaptation and resilience and climate change. So here you go.
Yeah, and I mean, and like friends and colleagues in, architecture schools, art schools, design schools. Also saw you doing it as you're kind of setting up. You're calling it experimenting, but I saw you doing it in a lot of different ways too, right? So it's not just you don't just have academic publications. You also have like creative projects. Am I right? Of
Yeah.
various kinds. So like one I saw listed was called Repair plus Share equals Care. Is that was one of your creative projects?
Yes.
What was that about? What'd you do there?
So back in the day, 2013, 2014, I came up with the idea of creating an online map, interactive map of creative repair practices around Brisbane.
Okay.
So what I wanted to do is revamp the idea of repair through a cool and hip interactive map online where people could access, but something that was actually pretty and well designed. So in that sense, it didn't feel like, a lot of people think about thrift shops and repair as something that's smelly, old,
Yeah.
that they don't want to go near.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show them that actually repair is a practice that holds a lot of significance, has value, and it can be whatever you want it to be. So, and I also wanted to bring forward the stories behind repair. So I created this interactive map, but on top of that, I recruited a bunch of students to collect artifacts, and we ran interviews with repairers. We identified community gardens. So it wasn't just about repair, it was also about exchange and sharing. And in that sense, we collected a lot of data that led to that interactive map that went online, and also to academic publications. And the care element, and I'm not the first one to connect that back to repair. We have John Tronto, and we have many people from the social work field that have talked extensively about repairing care. So in that sense, it's every act of repair entails care. And that came through interviewing repairers, that came through interviewing people involved in community gardens, that came through all the practices that require transgenerational exchange, they require
Yes.
skilling, they require keeping these practices alive.
That's great. And you keep just queuing up the next thing. I didn't give you questions. I never give questions ahead of time, but sometimes people just seem to know where I'm going next. So the next thing I wanted to ask you about is, in the edited volume that you were one of the co-editors on, you also have a chapter. The chapter is called "Community Resilience by Repair: Skilling At-Risk Youth for Social Impact and Environmental Sustainability." You co-wrote this with Tammy Brennan. And in it, you talk about this thing called the Maryborough Creative Industries Social Enterprise Repair and Restoration Initiative. Is it CSER? How do you do this?
CISER.
CISER, right
Sorry,
on.
we call it CISER, yes.
Beautiful. So tell us a bit about CISER and this paper.
Before I answer this question, I just realized I didn't answer the previous question in terms of that this project led to a photographic exhibition,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which was the creative outcome, but
Yeah.
also the map was a creative outcome, but also it was a practical outcome that unfortunately was never picked up by the Brisbane City Council in order to be funded and be given to the people of Brisbane. And then it's interesting because I saw a lot of similar projects happening around the world after that. And Vancouver has a similar map. And yeah, other places around the world have a similar map now. Jumping to the next question, which is about CISA. As I've mentioned several times throughout this conversation, I see repair as a holistic practice. So in that sense, when we came together with Tammy Brennan, now almost 4 years ago, to discuss how we can incorporate repair into engaging youth that has been disengaged from school or in some sort of involvement with the law. What came to mind was a collaboration that I had with a men's shed in Brisbane,
Oh, okay.
where one of my projects was bring together refugees and asylum seekers with repair skills with local repairs people, repairs men, repair women. And the idea was not just to exchange skills, but also make refugees and asylum seekers' skills more visible and help them feel at home in a new country, but also make them feel useful. So when I was having these conversations with Tammy about repair, and again, Tammy has an extensive background in arts management, and she's a very creative person. So we wanted to connect young people with creative practices as an expression, as a personal expression as a response to mental health struggles. A lot of these young men have had difficult backgrounds. Some of them are First Nations. So in that sense, we wanted to give them something to do that was different from conventional schooling, but kind of incorporated practices that were related to literacy and numeracy, or they were related to finding a professional pathway, but without the pressure of doing so. At the same time, we wanted to introduce them to circular economy practices like reusing existing resources, but also connecting them to the community by getting skilled through the men's shed, which is, I don't know if you have that concept in the United States.
You should go ahead and explain it. It's not very. I know it from repair world stuff and talking to people in Australia, especially. But please tell us what a men's shed is, because it's interesting. Yeah.
A men's shed is usually a shed, an old garage, a space that a community of usually retired men, and these days women too, using in order to make stuff or fix stuff. And usually these spaces are really well equipped. In Australia, they are funded by the government, the local government, or city councils, and they have all the equipment to make stuff, usually carpentry, or to fix stuff. And I've seen really beautiful projects coming out of that. And usually a lot of things get donated. These people get repurposed timber, and they make other stuff out of that, pallets, and they make tables out of pallets or chairs out of pallets. Toolboxes. So we thought with Tammy that this would be an excellent experiment of how to bring young people together with older mates, that's how we call them here in Australia, and get the older mates to mentor the young men and teach them skills in relation to carpentry, but also repair and fixing things and making things. What came out of that were toolboxes, chairs, and there are some photos included in
Yeah,
the
lovely
volume
photos. The
that
chairs are
that
great.
showcase
Yeah.
the outcomes. Also, we had local artists working with the young men, some of them First Nations, and we had some beautiful outcomes coming out of that.
No, it's so neat. And yeah, there's so many parts about it I like. Part of it is just, there's a lot of worries about kind of like skills gaps and a failure for young people to kind of learn these uh habits that, at least some people argue were more common back in the day. So just from a kind of intergenerational, like skills sharing perspective, it's very cool. Can you say a bit? I mean, I was impressed by can you say a bit about the research design on this paper? So, I mean, it wasn't just like you did it and then you wrote it up. You had like an impact map and you had a theory of change you were working with. And so how did you think about it in terms of like research design?
Um, Going back to the previous discussion about being a design psychologist, I do have a traditional social science background, but at the same time, I kind of not reject that, but I've seen what has been happening with environmental psychology, where we just measure stuff and then we make assumptions based on that, but that doesn't really change things. So with this project, I wanted to adopt a co-design approach where I would research with rather than for. And it's interesting because now, last week I measured, like I've been doing the monitor evaluation and learning of this project, which is called MEL. And it's a component that it's attached to measuring social impact. So what I've been trying to do with that is bring that together with some aspects of social science, but the ones that are more attached to interpretive phenomenology and not the traditional format of statistics and quantitative measurement. So in that sense, the idea behind what we're doing is that we start with assumptions and hypotheses, the theory of change, which we call impact map based on Ingrid Burkitt's concept, which I like better, to be honest. And based on that, we test ideas and we see what's working and what's not working.
Got you.
The beauty of this project is that we're testing that with the people that we're working with. So we evaluate the whole project with the people that we're working with, and then we co-design the next round. So what's happening is that after every round, we evaluate what happened, we reflect on that, we discuss how to move forward, and we try to find a direction and not an end goal. Because for us, the most important aspect is the process and not the end goal. What can we learn through the process? What changes organically through the process? And what gets co-designed and co-produced organically through the process? And what I try to do as a researcher is to bring that to the surface, write it up in a way that makes sense for other people to read, which is not always easy, as you know, and then translate that into a next iteration. I want to mention that it's been a very bumpy road because we read, like, it's not just my work, I read other colleagues' work, and what doesn't come through is how hard it is to work within conditions where funding is not consistent, where we're working with
Yeah.
people with actual problems. So, for example, in relation to the demographic we've been working with, it's an area in Queensland that the unemployment rate is really high. There's a high level of state dependency and welfare dependency, a high percentage of First Nations people. So in that sense, we are facing conditions that go beyond traditional research. We are facing conditions where we need to deal with everyday problems. And in that sense, that makes our heart, and we are invested, so we care about these people. Right? So when things go wrong for us too.
Yeah.
Like we feel the pain. And that's something that I don't think that comes through the written work, but actually it's a reality that a lot of researchers face
Yes.
while we're doing this kind of work.
Yeah, totally. I saw a very nice presentation by a guy named Theo Lim. I think he's moving to the University of Vancouver right now. He comes out of more like an urban planning background, but it's very much this community oriented, co-produced research project around urban heat, sickness, and death, and avoiding it and such. And yeah, I mean, this is like, his project involved the collaboration of a lot of different community groups and individuals. And yeah, I mean, it comes out in his presentation that this is not simple. And a lot of it has to do with like dealing with these problems that just pop up day in and day out because these people are in very straitened circumstances anyway. And so yes, I'm adding a +1. I think that if people want to do this kind of community oriented work, that is something they're going to find. It's not a simple thing. Yeah, but it seems important for everyone to reflect on that together, right? So people know what they're getting into. I don't know how. I mean, I've kind of thought with myself about how to ask the next question, which is, I didn't want to ask you like what I absolutely didn't want to ask you is like what your favorite pieces in the edited volume were, because that's like picking favorite children or something like that. That wasn't going to work. But I wanted you to like just talk about a couple pieces, and I think really what I'm most interested in is you kind of giving listeners kind of a sense of like the different things that are in the mix, so you could think of like the breadth of the piece. But just talk through like a couple pieces that you liked that kind of give people a sense of things.
First of all, I want to say that I really love this work because it's grounded in theory, but also showcases examples. So it's a great combo of theory, which is I think it's really important to show that there's theory behind all these concepts, that we as academics have something to ground our work in, but also there are examples in order to make the work visible and to help us understand how this theory can be translated into practice. So it's one of these volumes where you can see the combination of the two. It's not just assumptions or claims or conceptual leaps. There's actual theory, and the theory is transdisciplinary.
Oh,
Most
very.
of us come from a design background or work in design, but at the same time, we use theory and literature coming from economics, political theory, sociology, psychology,
Philosophy.
architecture, urbanism, philosophy, you name it. So in that sense, we're trying to show that if we break down the disciplinary silos, we can understand what we're doing better, and we can connect disciplines in our effort to contest contemporary challenges. So then this is the theory, but this is how we can do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And we showcase that through examples. And the beauty of this book is that it's not one thing. So we talk about design-led repair, which is the first section. And it's a very interesting one because Jesse Adam Stein talks about how we are a small group of people trying to bring change, but then we're facing a government that doesn't even understand repair in connection to design. So then we have activist grassroots initiatives through the work of Leanne Wiseman and Jay Sanderson, but also Melissa and Blanca's work that talk about the idea of repair-led design through repair cafes and the Restart project. And going back to design-led repair, there's also Guy Keulemans' work that shows how repair cannot be just one thing. It can transform objects, it can bring new aesthetic nuances, it can feel hip and modern, but at the same time, it can be a language that we designers need to understand better and talk more. So yeah, you're asking me to choose a piece, but I love them all.
Yeah. You're doing very well, actually.
And then we're moving on to my work and my colleagues' work, which is Abby Mellick Lopes and Alison Gill. And they've been doing beautiful work about commoning and repair in relation to design. And actually, Abby has been doing a lot of work about urban heat and breezes too. So
Nice,
going back to your mentions there, you have to send me these names by email. But their work is also very important because it talks about commoning, and I think commoning is something that provides a response to the people that talk about scale and how we can scale up. And the right to repair movement is a great example of that, and especially in the United States, how it has transformed the landscape by states passing bills about the right to repair and putting pressure on John Deere and Apple and Microsoft to change their ways. So my work and Tammy's work in conjunction with Abby and Ali's work puts forward commoning and repair, or how we can drive a community led behavioral change, which is a concept that I introduced through my work, and I think it's really important. A lot of people coming from behavioral economics are going to hate me for that, but I contest the concept of individual behavioral change a lot. And the right to repair movement is an excellent example of community-led behavioral change, going back to repair and design. And we also have a section on decolonial approaches, which I think is really, really important because the way repair is talked about is a lot of the times excluded from practices that are on the ground and have been around for thousands of years. And we have Indigenous peoples and First Nations peoples and communities all around the world doing that since the dawn of day. So in that sense, we can't exclude these conversations and cultural practices from a discussion about design and repair.
You did very well. I mean, you have you covered all the all the sections very well. So what's up next for you? I mean, what are you on to after this volume? And is there more repair stuff? Is repair kind of, do you see it as central to your future work, or do you think you're going to head in slightly different directions?
I think repair is part of what I do because my work is all about resilience and adaptation and every connotation of resilience, which I think it's really, really important. The concept has been, right now, how we understand resilience is about bouncing back, and that's an economic term. And that puts pressure on people to feel that they have to respond to that in order for an economy to be able to support them. From where I stand, repair is about people understanding that they have the agency as communities, as place-based approaches, as lived experience to respond to what's in front of them. And it's not just about disadvantaged populations. It's about each and every one of us, because none of us is detached from the environments we live in.
Yeah.
And all the environments we live in are unsettled and in danger right now. So in that sense, what I'm trying to do through the overall concept and idea and discursive practice of design psychology and repair in particular is bring that understanding to the forefront that our beds are on fire and we need to respond in a pragmatic way. So
Yeah.
repair is part of that.
Yeah. I see it. And so do you have what you have this, so you have this edited volume coming out. You have a new book coming
Yes.
out in
Introduction to Design Psychology, published by Routledge, hopefully by the end of 2024.
Okay. And you can say the answer is no and you are in a perfectly good spot, but do you have next projects, like the next thing, or you gonna take a break?
No, I'm not taking a break.
Okay.
Because we are academics, we never do that. But I would like to produce a couple of papers on design psychology and spread the word. The project CISA is an ongoing project.
Okay.
We just finished the evaluation of the 4th round, and we're seeking funding in order to be able to continue the project and expand the project. Also, I would like to write more about that in terms of the co-design and co-production process in relation to repair and how we research with instead of researching for.
Yes.
The other thing that I'm discussing with colleagues is a symposium here in Brisbane about commoning and repair/design or design/repair. With the participation not just people from Australia, but also whoever wants to come from around the world. I have some stuff that I'm working on right now.
That's great. Well, Eleni, I'm really looking forward to that stuff. I think it's really good. And thank you so much for coming and taking the time to talk to me today. It's been a really good time.
Thanks for inviting me, and it's been a great conversation. Thanks again for your great work, Lee. The maintainers side has changed our lives as repair researchers. It has made us feel included, which is really,
That's
really
great.
important because, as you know, it's been very isolating.
It
for
has been,
a really long
yes.
time.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of our podcast. You can reach us with questions, comments, and suggestions at leevinsel@gmail.com or by following me on Twitter at STS_news or on YouTube at People's Things. Our podcast is distributed by the New Books Network, the leading platform for academic podcasts, so that you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Peoples and Things, like most things in this world, depends on the work of many people. I want to thank my brother Jake Vinsel for writing the music for the show. I want to thank my buddy Juliana Castro for designing the logos for the podcast. You can check out her work at julianacastro.co. Joe Fort is the producer for the podcast, and Mandy Lamb is the production assistant. This podcast and other Peoples and Things programming are produced in affiliation with Virginia Tech Publishing and supported by the Center for Humanities and the University Libraries at Virginia Tech. For information about other podcasts from Virginia Tech Publishing, visit publishing.vt.edu. For the entire Peoples and Things team, I am Lee Vinsel. And most importantly, I want to thank you for listening. Thanks.